Vengeance drove Xerxes, king of Persia, but it was more than personal, it was imperial necessity. His father Darius had been humiliated at Marathon, a defeat that haunted the Persian throne. Xerxes inherited not just a crown, but a mission to crush the Greeks and erase the memory of that loss. The Persian Empire thrived on expansion. Greek defiance threatened its very foundation. Xerxes' plan was not a raid, but a full-scale invasion. Greece would be conquered, not just punished. He spent years amassing resources, troops, and ships from every corner of his vast empire. Advisors like Mardonius fueled his ambition, promising easy victory and eternal glory. Xerxes' preparations dwarfed anything seen before, aiming to overwhelm Greece with sheer might. This was to be his legacy, not his father's defeat, but his own unstoppable conquest. The shadow of Marathon would be buried beneath the weight of Persian power. Xerxes' army was a moving empire, hundreds of thousands strong, drawn from every nation he ruled. Ancient sources exaggerated their numbers, but even modern estimates stagger the imagination. The logistical challenge was immense: food, water, and coordination for a force that could drink rivers dry. Persian engineers bridged the Hellespont with floating pontoons, turning sea into road. A canal was cut through Mount Athos, bypassing deadly waters that had doomed earlier fleets. Supply depots lined the invasion route, and the fleet shadowed the army, carrying provisions and guarding the coast. Yet the sheer size of the host strained every plan. Roads became quagmires and command was chaos. The invasion was a marvel of planning, but also a fragile colossus, utterly dependent on its supply lines. Xerxes' will alone kept the behemoth moving toward Greece. The Greek city-states, usually bitter rivals, forged a desperate alliance as Persia advanced. Sparta led on land, Athens at sea. Together they formed the Hellenic League. Outnumbered, the Greeks chose strategy over strength, using geography as their shield. Their plan holed narrow passes and straits, forcing the Persians into choke points. Thermopylae, the hot gates, was the chosen stand. Mountains pressed the road to a thin track. 7,000 Greeks, including 300 elite Spartans under King Leonidas, fortified the pass. Their mission was not victory, but delay, to buy time for Greece to rally. At sea, the Athenian navy blocked the Straits of Artemisium, forming a double barrier. The Greeks braced for a fight they knew they might not survive, but could not afford to lose. For Persians, the march was misery. Hunger, thirst, and disease stalked the ranks. Xerxes' discipline was enforced by fear. His immortals kept order, but morale was brittle. Many soldiers fought far from home for a cause not their own, haunted by tales of Spartan ferocity. The Greeks, though few, faced their own hardships: isolation, exhaustion, and the weight of certain death. Spartan discipline was forged in lifelong training, binding them in unity and purpose. Their strength was psychological as much as physical, a shared code, a sense of duty. For Leonidas and his men, survival was secondary to honor. They stood to hold the pass or die trying. The Greeks' cohesion and resolve gave them an edge the vast Persian host could not match. At Thermopylae, the battle was as much against fear as against the enemy. Xerxes expected the Greeks to flee. Instead, Leonidas answered his demand for surrender with, "Come and get them." The Persians attacked in waves, but the narrow pass nullified their numbers. The Greek phalanx, shields locked, spears bristling, formed an unbreakable wall. Lightly armed Persians were cut down. The Greeks rotated fresh troops to the front, never faltering. Clever tactics, feigned retreats, sudden counterattacks kept the Persians off balance. For 2 days, Xerxes watched his best troops, even the elite immortals, fail to break through. The pass became a slaughterhouse, Persian dead piled high before the Greek line. Old rivalries vanished as Spartans, Thespians, and others fought as one. Leonidas led from the front, inspiring his men by example. The Greeks' unity, discipline, and use of terrain turned the battle into a legend. By the end of the 2nd day, the Persian advance was still blocked. Xerxes' army, battered and frustrated, had gained nothing but losses. The hot gates held. On the 2nd night, Persian hopes revived, not by force, but by treachery. Ephialtes, a local, revealed a secret mountain path to Xerxes, seeking reward. The Greeks had stationed Phocians to guard it, but they were outmaneuvered as the immortals slipped past. At dawn, Leonidas learned the Persians would soon attack from behind. The mission to delay the enemy was complete. The pass was lost. Leonidas dismissed most of the Greeks, ordering them to warn the rest of Greece. He and his 300 Spartans, bound by honour, stayed to fight to the end. 700 Thespians chose to remain, embracing certain death for freedom's sake. 400 Thebans, suspected of Persian sympathies, were compelled to stay. The final stand was set, a few hundred Greeks against the might of Persia, surrounded on all sides. Their goal now was not survival, but to sell their lives dearly and inspire all of Greece. The betrayal sealed their fate, but also their legend. The last stand began. The final hours were a desperate, heroic last stand. Leonidas and his men fought with everything, spears, swords, even bare hands. When Leonidas fell, his men fought to recover his body, refusing to yield. Surrounded, the last defenders made their stand atop a hill, dying under a storm of arrows. Thermopylae's lesson, know your ground. The Greeks turned terrain into their greatest weapon. Endurance mattered more than strength. The Greeks rotated troops, conserved energy, and outlasted the Persians. Morale and purpose were decisive. The defenders fought for home, freedom, and honour. Survival is not just about strength, but about will, preparation, and unity. Even in defeat, the Greeks achieved their goal. They delayed the Persians and inspired their people. The will to endure, even when doomed, is the ultimate survival tool. Thermopylae was a defeat that changed history. The sacrifice of Leonidas and his men bought Greece precious time to prepare. Their stand became a rallying cry, proving Persia could be resisted. Inspired, the Greeks won at Salamis and Plataea, turning the tide of the war. Thermopylae became a symbol of courage against overwhelming odds, a story retold for centuries. Its lessons go beyond war. Knowledge, preparation, and willpower can overcome even the greatest challenges. The Greeks chose to stand, to use their environment, and to value duty over survival. True strength is the will to act despite fear and hardship, the legacy of the 300 lives on wherever freedom and resilience are cherished. At the hot gates, the art of survival was written in blood and in legend.